If you hate visitors, Carl Jung says this about your soul. Solitude gives birth to the original in us, Carl Jung once said. In a world that constantly demands our presence, what if the deepest parts of your soul are quietly asking for space? If you've ever felt uneasy about unexpected visitors or found comfort in the stillness of your own company, you are not alone and you're not broken. There may be a profound spiritual reason behind your need for silence and separation. In today's video, we explore what Carl Jung revealed about those who find peace in solitude, and why your discomfort around visitors might reflect something sacred about your soul's path. Do you resonate with this? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's open up a conversation about the quiet power of inner space. 1. Discomfort with visitors is not a flaw. It's a soul signal. There is a certain kind of person who finds it difficult to welcome unexpected visitors, not because they dislike others, but because the interruption feels like a violation of something sacred. Carl Jung, with his deep understanding of the psyche and soul, would never label this behavior as rude or antisocial. Instead, he would see it as a profound indicator of a soul that has awakened to its own energetic boundaries. When someone who is sensitive, intuitive, or spiritually attuned hears a knock on the door, it isn't just a physical sound, it's an energetic disruption. Their inner world, carefully constructed and tenderly guarded, does not open easily. The home for such individuals isn't just a structure, it's an extension of their aura, a temple of their inner stillness. And the presence of others, however well-meaning, can feel like an intrusion on that sacred frequency. For spiritually sensitive individuals, this resistance to visitors often stems from an invisible but very real layer of protection. It is not about the people themselves, it's about the sudden shift in vibration, the unannounced energy exchange that takes place when someone crosses the threshold. Jung taught that introverts and spiritually inclined souls draw energy from solitude and inward reflection. Their life force is not replenished by conversation, but by contemplation. They do not fear people, but they cherish silence. They are not hiding from the world. They are protecting what is too rarely honored in modern life, their own soul space. And this protection is not a weakness. It is spiritual intelligence. It is emotional awareness. It is a deep-rooted understanding that your inner world must be preserved in order to remain whole. This discomfort is often heightened in today's hyper-connected, overstimulated culture, where being constantly available is praised and solitude is mistaken for sadness. But spiritual awakening requires the exact opposite: disconnection from noise and reconnection with self. The resistance to unexpected visits is not an aversion to love. It's a commitment to alignment. It's the refusal to abandon your inner sanctuary for the sake of politeness. And if someone interprets that as coldness, they misunderstand the nature of boundaries and the depth of spiritual growth. Just as we do not open our heart to everyone we meet, we do not need to open our door to every knock. Protecting your space is an act of sacred rebellion against a world that constantly demands your attention and energy. Even in psychology, this desire for solitude is seen as a sign of advanced self-awareness. The individual who chooses silence over social obligation is not withdrawing in fear, but returning to wholeness. Jung understood that the soul needs time to incubate, to breathe, to integrate the chaos of the external world. Visitors often arrive with stories, emotions, or vibrations that do not align with your present state. And when you're in a deep phase of healing, reflection, or energetic cleansing, even the kindest guest can feel like too much. Your body knows before your mind does. That tension in your chest, that subtle urge to withdraw, is not to be ignored. It is the wisdom of your nervous system and soul acting as guardians of your peace. Honor it. Trust it. Because your need for solitude is not a phase, it's a spiritual compass pointing you back to yourself. Do you ever feel uneasy when someone enters your space? If so, share your thoughts in the comments and let others know they're not alone. And if you've never explored what this discomfort might mean for your soul, comment below. I'm ready to understand my inner world. Let's awaken this spiritual wisdom together. 2. Introversion is an energetic necessity. Carl Jung understood something most people overlook. Introversion isn't about being shy or antisocial. It's a deep, energetic orientation of the soul. When you feel drained after a visit, when the sound of a knock unsettles your entire being, or when a simple conversation leaves you needing hours of silence to recover, it doesn't mean you're broken. It means your psychic system is highly attuned, sensitive to energies that most people ignore. Visitors don't just bring stories. They bring emotions, unresolved wounds, unspoken intentions, and invisible frequencies. And when you are on a path of spiritual development, when your inner world is in the delicate process of growth and alignment, every external interaction becomes an energetic exchange. You're not just listening, you're absorbing. You're not just hosting, you're processing. You're not being distant, you're protecting sacred inner ground that is under construction. Your need for solitude is not a personality trait, it's a spiritual imperative. When Jung spoke of individuation, he was pointing to a lifelong journey of becoming whole, of integrating shadow and light, of listening to the truth of the self over the noise of the world. This process is quiet, subtle, and often misunderstood by those who seek constant stimulation. But for the introverted soul, silence is not an absence, it is a sanctuary. It's where the soul remembers who it is beneath the masks, where the nervous system softens, where the divine whispers are finally heard. In these moments of stillness, the chatter of others fades and something deeper emerges, a sense of clarity, a knowing, a reconnection to inner truth. And it's in these spaces that spiritual wisdom blooms. You begin to realize that your discomfort with visitors isn't about dislike. It's about energetic preservation. It's about knowing, often unconsciously, that your inner space is being stirred, not always with intention, but with intensity. And while others may recharge by being together, your restoration lies in being alone with your thoughts, your spirit, your breath. You may feel guilty for saying no to invitations, or you may wonder if something is wrong with you when the presence of another person feels like too much. But Jung's psychology reminds us that every soul has its own energetic blueprint. Yours is designed to turn inward, to find peace in reflection, to grow not through crowds, but through quiet. This is not a flaw. It's a sacred design. And the more you evolve spiritually, the more sensitive you become to what enters your field, be it voices, emotions, or energy that no longer aligns. You become a gatekeeper of your own sanctuary. And that discernment, that quiet knowing of when to open and when to close, is not a weakness, it's mastery. As your spiritual development deepens, you realize you don't owe anyone your constant availability. You owe yourself peace. You owe yourself protection. You owe yourself space to become. So the next time your body resists a knock at the door, or your spirit hesitates before letting someone in, trust that signal. It's not fear, it's wisdom. It's not avoidance, it's alignment. You are not meant to be everything to everyone. You are meant to honor your energy, to nurture your soul, to walk gently through your own unfolding. Let solitude be your teacher. Let silence be your medicine. Let boundaries be your form of love. Because in the end, your spiritual awakening is not something you need to explain. It's something you live, moment by moment, choice by choice, breath by breath, in the sacred stillness where your soul finds home. Do you feel drained by unexpected visits? Maybe it's not a flaw, but a spiritual sign. If you resonate with this, comment below. I will meditate to honor your energy and reclaim your inner peace. 3. The home reflects the soul. Carl Jung taught that the home is not merely a place to live. It is a symbolic map of the self, a sacred architecture of your soul. Each room reflects a hidden layer of your psyche. The kitchen nurtures your instincts. The living room projects your social identity, and the bedroom protects your inner vulnerability. So when someone crosses the threshold into your home, it's more than a visit. It's an energetic encounter. They are not just entering a space. They are stepping into your field, brushing up against your emotional boundaries, your mental clarity, your spiritual essence. And if you are in a season of inner healing, integration, or profound transformation, their presence, no matter how well-meaning, can feel like an emotional invasion. You might feel a tightening in your chest, a resistance that isn't logical, but deeply intuitive. That discomfort is your soul speaking. It's your body protecting the silence you need in order to change. And it's not a flaw, it's intelligence. It's spiritual wisdom. You are not being rude. You are not broken. You are becoming. When you feel an aversion to visitors, it's often because your nervous system is undergoing recalibration. During the process of individuation, the unfolding of the true self, separate from the collective persona, you become more sensitive to energies, sounds, movements, and intentions. You begin to notice the way others carry their chaos into your calm. Their conversations, expectations, or projections disrupt the delicate alchemy happening within you. The outer noise collides with your inner silence, and your soul resists. You feel the need to close the door, not just physically, but energetically. And in that moment, it's not about isolation. It's about protection. You are not pushing others away out of fear. You are pulling yourself inward out of reverence for the sacred work being done within. This resistance to visitors is not a personality defect. It is a sign of psychological depth. It means you are evolving. You are moving from the external to the internal, from performance to presence, from pleasing others to honoring yourself. The world may not understand this need for silence. In fact, it may label you as distant or cold. But Jung reminds us that loneliness does not come from being alone, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important. What's important to you now can't be shared over coffee or small talk. It's unfolding in moments of breath, solitude, contemplation. It's happening in your quiet rituals, in the space between thoughts, in the light falling across your floor, in the way you rearrange your inner furniture to match the new soul that's emerging. You're not rejecting people. You're choosing presence. You're not avoiding connection. You're redefining what connection means. Because for someone doing the work of awakening, not every knock deserves an open door. Some doors must remain closed so that your soul can open. And that is not selfish. That is sacred. That is spiritual intelligence in action. If your home is your sanctuary and your soul thrives in stillness, comment below, "My home reflects my soul," to affirm your truth. 4. Visitors activate the persona and the shadow. Hosting guests in your home may seem like a simple act of hospitality, but for the spiritually sensitive and those undergoing deep spiritual awakening, it often stirs an invisible storm within. When someone crosses your threshold, you're not just offering tea and small talk. You're being asked, sometimes unconsciously, to step out of your authentic self and put on the socially acceptable mask, the persona. As Carl Jung explained, the persona is a carefully crafted mask we wear to function in society, to please, to be polite, to meet expectations. It helps us adapt. But when that mask is forced upon us in the sacred stillness of our own space, it becomes a source of inner friction. You might find yourself smiling out of obligation while your soul quietly aches for solitude. The discomfort is not rudeness, nor is it social dysfunction. It is the soul resisting a false performance. When we suppress our truth to appease others, especially in the spaces where we're meant to feel most free, we risk losing touch with who we truly are. Jung said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." And nowhere is that more vital than within the walls of your sanctuary, where masks should be laid to rest and the soul allowed to breathe. Beyond the social mask, there is a deeper layer often triggered when visitors arrive the shadow. This is the hidden part of yourself that holds the suppressed, rejected, or unresolved aspects of your psyche. It's not visible to others, and often not even to yourself, until something or someone pulls it to the surface. A guest might say something innocently, or exhibit a behavior that unconsciously reminds you of a past wound, an old betrayal, or a buried insecurity. Without realizing it, your body tightens, your energy drops, and your emotions become difficult to manage. You don't know why you suddenly feel drained, annoyed, or overwhelmed, but this is the shadow rising. Jung believed that the shadow must be brought into consciousness to heal, and that discomfort is often its signal flare. The house that was once peaceful now feels energetically hijacked, not because the person intended harm, but because their presence activated something unprocessed inside of you. Spiritual awakening is not just about feeling good or reaching bliss. It's about seeing clearly, and that includes recognizing the subtle ways your peace is disturbed and why. This is why protecting your energy is not selfish, it's essential. In modern life, we're trained to ignore these inner cues. We're told to be nice, to entertain guests no matter how we feel, to tolerate discomfort for the sake of appearances. But spirituality calls you back to honesty. It invites you to notice what your body, your spirit, your emotional field is saying. If your energy dips the moment someone walks in, if you find yourself needing hours or even days to recover after a short visit, that's not just introversion, it's spiritual intelligence speaking. Jung would affirm that individuation, the journey toward wholeness, requires solitude, conscious boundaries, and the courage to face all parts of yourself without judgment. You're not here to be endlessly available, constantly agreeable, or socially perfect. You're here to become whole. And that process sometimes demands distance. It demands that you honor your truth, even when it's inconvenient. In a society addicted to connection, choosing silence, space, and self-protection becomes a radical act of spiritual self-love. You are not rejecting people, you are accepting yourself. And in that acceptance, your soul finds the freedom to heal. If this insight into the persona and the shadow spoke to you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment below. Let's uncover more about this powerful truth together. 5. The hermit archetype lives within you. If the sound of a doorbell or the thought of someone entering your space stirs a quiet tension in your body, you're not broken. You may be being called inward by something ancient and powerful within you. Carl Jung called this energy the hermit archetype, and it doesn't signal dysfunction or antisocial tendencies, it signals a sacred threshold. The hermit lives in all of us, quietly waiting for the moment when we no longer feel at home in the noise of the world, when small talk begins to taste like dust, and the only thing that feels real is silence. The hermit is the soul's invitation to retreat, to pause the endless performance of life and enter into the sanctuary of solitude, not as escape, but as transformation. Jung believed that individuation, the journey of becoming your true self, demands these quiet seasons. And if you found yourself resenting visitors, avoiding invitations, or craving the stillness of your own home, it may be because your psyche knows that this inner work cannot be done in crowds. In a society that glorifies availability, rewards overstimulation, and pressures us to always say yes, honoring your discomfort is a radical act of spiritual development. When you stop feeling like yourself in social settings, or notice your energy depleting faster than usual, it's not necessarily depression or laziness. It might be evolution. Just as a caterpillar must cocoon in darkness before becoming a butterfly, so too must we embrace these silent spaces if we wish to emerge transformed. The hermit does not hate people. The hermit simply knows that there are moments when being alone is the only way to hear your truth. You're not rejecting others. You're reclaiming your essence. You are peeling back the layers of who you were taught to be so that who you truly are can rise. You are learning to speak a more ancient language, the language of intuition, presence, and still awareness. This journey inward requires courage because it often lacks validation. No one applauds your silence. No one throws a party for your boundaries. But deep spirituality doesn't need applause. It needs truth. Jung taught that real transformation begins with inner confrontation, and you cannot confront yourself while being endlessly distracted. When the inner hermit awakens, it asks you to simplify, to surrender, to step away from what drains and return to what nourishes. Even if the world tells you to be more social, more open, more available, your soul might be whispering less. Less noise, less chaos, less pretending, more presence, more clarity, more you. There is deep intelligence in your solitude. It is not isolation. It is alignment. It is the soil from which authenticity grows. The more you honor your need for space, the more spiritually aligned you become, because you begin living in rhythm with your inner seasons instead of forcing yourself to match the pace of a chaotic world. Every time you listen to that quiet no inside when someone asks to visit, and you don't have the energy, you are practicing self-respect. Every time you choose silence over stimulation, you are tending to the garden of your soul. Your spiritual awakening may not look loud. It may not look impressive, but it is real, and it is sacred. This is the path of the hermit, the quiet, powerful unfolding of a soul that is no longer willing to abandon itself for the comfort of others. In this silence, you are not lost. You are finally being found. If you're still with us, comment below, "I'm honoring the hermit within." Your voice helps us deepen this journey into spiritual wisdom and Carl Jung's insights. 6. Solitude is not isolation. It's a path to wholeness. If you often feel a deep discomfort when someone rings your doorbell, when a visitor disrupts the calm of your space, or when you're expected to socialize just because it's polite, understand this: your response is not a flaw. It's a reflection of your inner spiritual intelligence. Carl Jung once said, "Loneliness does not come from having no people around you, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important to you." This means that your yearning for solitude isn't about rejecting people. It's about protecting the sacredness of your inner world. When you say no to unexpected guests or guard your quiet hours fiercely, you are actually honoring something ancient and wise within you. You're creating a boundary not out of bitterness, but out of reverence for your own energy, your mental clarity, your emotional balance. This is not selfish. This is soul care. In the teachings of Carl Jung and other deep psychological and spiritual frameworks, solitude is seen as a gateway to wholeness. Not the kind of isolation that disconnects you from life, but the kind that reconnects you with your authentic essence. There is a quiet power in preserving your space. It gives you room to notice your thoughts, integrate your emotions, and align your spirit with your truth. When you're constantly surrounded by people, constantly accommodating their needs, their timelines, and their emotional weight, you begin to lose sight of your own internal compass. Jungian spiritual wisdom teaches that in order to truly individuate to become the person you were born to be, you must withdraw from the world temporarily so you can learn how to meet it again with depth, awareness, and power. When you feel that deep resistance to interruption, you are not being rude. You are listening to a signal from your soul that says, it's time to turn inward. So many people misunderstand this trait and call it antisocial or distant. But those with sensitive, awakened spirits know that energy is real. Conversations carry energy. Interactions, even brief ones, have weight. If your energy field is delicate, empathic, intuitive, or going through transformation, you simply cannot afford to entertain every visitor, every call, every knock on the door. Not because you don't care, but because you care too much about your peace, your purpose, your spiritual evolution. When you choose solitude, you are actually refining your internal vibration. You are not hiding. You are preparing. You are not disconnected. You are deeply connected to something higher than the social script. You are building a relationship with your own soul. And that is the most important relationship of all. Saying no to visitors doesn't mean you don't love people. It means you are aware of how precious your attention, time, and inner space are. Every time you say no, you are saying yes to clarity, to healing, to deeper levels of presence. You're choosing sacred alignment over shallow obligation. You're choosing to be whole instead of always available. And that takes courage. It takes a level of maturity and inner security that not everyone will understand. But that's okay. The path of spiritual awakening is not about being understood by the masses. It's about understanding yourself. So protect your silence, guard your energy, trust your inner signals. And know this: the solitude you choose today is the soil where your next level of transformation will grow. If this truth resonates with your soul today, drop a comment below. Solitude leads me to wholeness. Your voice helps others walking the same spiritual path feel seen. So if you've ever felt uneasy about unexpected visitors or find peace in solitude, remember, there's nothing wrong with you. As Carl Jung suggests, this might be a deeper sign of your soul's unique structure, your boundaries, your spiritual rhythm. In a world that often rewards noise and connection, honoring your need for quiet and space is not a flaw. It's a form of wisdom. If this resonated with you, don't keep it to yourself like this video. Share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom so you don't miss any of our future insights. And don't forget to turn on the notification bell. We're just getting started on this journey within. The psychological reason adult children turn against their parents. The greatest burden a child must bear is the unlived life of the parent. Carl Jung. Welcome back to Spiritual Wisdom. Today, we're diving into one of the most painful and misunderstood experiences a parent can face: when an adult child turns away. In this video, we explore the deep psychological forces often hidden in the unconscious that shape distance, resentment, and silence within families. More importantly, we uncover what these patterns mean for your own healing, growth, and emotional freedom. As you listen, I invite you to reflect on your own story. Have you ever experienced this kind of emotional separation, either as a parent or as a child? Share your thoughts in the comments below, because your voice may bring comfort to someone who feels alone. Let's begin this journey toward clarity, compassion, and inner peace. 1. The pain of parental abandonment. Of all human heartbreaks, few cut as deeply as watching your own children pull away. Because when a parent who once gave everything now sits in front of a silent phone or an empty doorway, it feels like the universe has collapsed into a single unanswered question. Why did the people I loved the most choose to leave me behind? Yet Carl Jung reminds us that the greatest burden a child must bear is the unlived life of the parent. And through this lens, the distance between parent and child becomes not just an act of rejection, but a complex psychological and spiritual response to years of unspoken emotional weight. Many adult children do not wake up one day and suddenly decide to abandon their parents. Instead, this distance forms slowly through unresolved conflicts, repeated moments of feeling unheard, years of subtle criticism, or the quiet expectation that they must sacrifice their own identity to maintain harmony. What looks like coldness is often the child's attempt to breathe, because for some, every interaction triggers old wounds: guilt, pressure, comparison, or the feeling that love must be earned rather than freely given. And when the nervous system associates a parent with emotional danger instead of emotional safety, withdrawal becomes a form of survival. From the outside, the parent may only see disrespect, ingratitude, or sudden disinterest. But underneath, The adult child may be fleeing from patterns that shaped their entire upbringing, patterns the parent may not even realize existed. Jung warned that nothing shapes a child more than the parts of a parent's life the parent refused to face, and many children carry not just their own pain, but the emotional burdens their parents never resolved. Loneliness masked as control, fear disguised as criticism, disappointment hidden inside high expectations. When this weight becomes too heavy, separation becomes not an attack, but a desperate act of self-preservation. Spiritually, some souls choose families that challenge them in the deepest ways so that they may awaken, break generational cycles, and rediscover their true identity beyond the roles placed upon them. This process of spiritual awakening can appear harsh, especially to the parent who feels abandoned, but on a soul level, it is an attempt to heal wounds that have echoed across generations. For many parents, this distance feels like betrayal, yet it is often the result of misunderstandings that accumulated over years. A child who was constantly told to be strong may now avoid the parent because they were never allowed to be vulnerable. A child who was scolded for expressing emotions may now protect themselves through silence. A child who was expected to care for a parent's feelings may now cut contact to finally build their own life without carrying emotional debts they never chose. This does not mean the parent was intentionally hurtful. It means the emotional landscape of the family was shaped by unspoken rules, survival patterns, and inherited pain that no one was taught how to navigate. But when the parent dares to look inward instead of only outward, something transformative happens. The question shifts from, "Why are they doing this to me?" to "What pain have they been carrying that I have never truly seen?" And this shift opens the door to healing for both. Spirituality teaches that relationships act as mirrors, reflecting the parts of ourselves we avoid. And having your own child turn away is one of the harshest mirrors life can hold up, forcing you to confront not only who they are, but who you became through years of habit, fear, and unexamined patterns. This reflection is not meant to punish, but to awaken. Because even small shifts in awareness, learning to listen without defense, apologizing without justification, and acknowledging the emotions that were overlooked can begin to soften years of tension. Even if the child is not ready to return, the parent's inner work is never wasted, because change occurs first in energy before it appears in physical form. And when a parent commits to understanding, healing, and releasing old patterns, the emotional atmosphere of the relationship begins to shift. In the end, the distance between a parent and a child is rarely rooted in a single event. It is woven from unmet needs, unspoken truths, inherited wounds, and the difficult psychological process of carving out identity. While the past cannot be rewritten, the present can become a turning point when approached with humility, honesty, and a sincere desire to break the cycle. Because even in the silence, connection is not lost. It is waiting for the moment when both souls are ready to meet again in truth rather than in pain. 2. Common reasons for estrangement. When adult children turn away from their parents, the reasons are rarely simple. And Carl Jung's psychology shows us that estrangement often grows from emotional wounds that were never understood or healed. Many adult children still carry scars from childhood, especially if they felt their parents were too strict, too controlling, or emotionally unavailable. And even when you believed you were doing the best you could, your child may have experienced those moments as pressure, fear, or a loss of safety. This emotional memory doesn't disappear with age. It lingers in the subconscious, shaping how they relate to you now. When they distance themselves, it is often a form of self-protection, an attempt to escape emotions they never learned to process, not a direct rejection of your worth or identity as a parent. Yet beyond personal history, society itself plays a powerful role in widening the gap between parents and children. Because modern culture glorifies independence and subtly teaches that caring for parents is a burden rather than a blessing. The media encourages cutting ties as a symbol of strength and choosing yourself, without acknowledging the heartbreak left behind. Many young adults absorb the belief that emotional boundaries mean avoidance, that healing means disconnecting, and that adulthood means forgetting where they came from. This cultural shift creates an invisible wall between generations, making love feel heavy and responsibility feel old-fashioned. Family conflict adds another layer, because unhealed tension has a long memory. Jung once said, "What is not made conscious appears in our lives as fate," and this is painfully true within families. Past divorces, arguments, betrayals, financial stress, remarriages, or years of silent resentment create emotional cracks that children feel deeply. Even when the conflict is over, the emotional climate it created can linger for decades. Adult children may step away, not because they do not care, but because the atmosphere of the past still feels unsafe or heavy. The problem is that their distance shows up as coldness, while the true reason is unspoken pain. However, another side must also be acknowledged: entitlement and lack of gratitude. Some adult children take their parents for granted, believing they owe nothing in return for the sacrifices made for them. This mindset is fueled by a culture that tells individuals they are self-made, ignoring the love, labor, and sleepless nights that shaped their foundation. When adult children operate from entitlement, they may dismiss their parents' needs, minimize their sacrifices, and behave with indifference or disrespect. This is not a reflection of your failures, but of their lack of emotional maturity and spiritual development. When you place these truths side by side, a larger picture emerges, one that blends psychology with spirituality. Estrangement is not only a relationship issue, it is a mirror showing the unhealed wounds on both sides and the cultural forces that push families apart. Jung's insight invites you to look beneath the surface and ask deeper questions about what pain remains unspoken, what generational patterns remain unresolved, and how both you and your child have been shaped by pressures far bigger than your home. Through the lens of spiritual development, you begin to see that healing starts not by demanding change from your child, but by understanding your own heart, acknowledging what you could not offer in the past, and cultivating compassion for both sides of the story. And from this understanding come the lessons. Do not let your child's distance define your worth. Look honestly at any pain you may have contributed to and offer humility rather than shame. Resist the urge to chase or beg, and instead keep your heart open with dignity. And finally, use this season to grow in your own spirituality, healing your own wounds, so that if reconciliation comes, it comes to a stronger, wiser version of you. Because even if your relationship does not repair overnight, the inner work you do becomes a quiet light that one day may guide your child back, not out of guilt, but out of genuine readiness to reconnect. 3. The Jungian perspective, individuation. Carl Jung believed that every child must eventually separate from their parents to form a true and independent identity. And when you look at this through the lens of spiritual wisdom, you begin to see that this separation is not a rejection, but a natural stage of inner growth. Individuation, as Jung called it, is the lifelong process of becoming whole. And for many adult children, this journey requires creating emotional distance from the place where their earliest patterns were formed. Yet when this natural separation becomes extreme, it does not feel like growth. It feels like abandonment, leaving both parent and child carrying wounds that neither fully understands. And here lies the painful paradox. The same child who once needed you for everything now feels the need to step away from you to find themselves, not because they hate you, but because they are wrestling with parts of their own shadow they discovered within the relationship. This is why Jung said, "The greatest burden a child must bear is the unlived life of the parent," pointing to the invisible, emotional weight children often carry without realizing it. The expectations, the fears, the dreams, and the unspoken pressures that shape them long before they are old enough to choose who they want to be. Many adult children pull away, not from the parent, but from the version of themselves they became in the parent's presence, and the distance becomes a way to escape the emotional script they were handed. A child who grows up feeling unseen may avoid the parent to avoid that feeling. A child who absorbed their parent's pain may step back to stop absorbing it. A child who never found their own voice may need silence to hear it for the first time. But from the parent's perspective, these inner battles look like coldness, disrespect, or indifference, especially when the phone stops ringing or visits become rare. Emotional estrangement is rarely caused by one dramatic moment. It is usually the result of years of unexpressed feelings, misunderstandings, unmet needs, or wounds that were never addressed. And because humans often fear confrontation, many children choose distance over dialogue, believing that space will protect them from old pain. What makes this even more complex is that both sides often feel misunderstood at the same time. Parents mourn the loss of closeness, thinking, "Where did I go wrong?" While children feel overwhelmed by emotions they cannot name, thinking, "I can't go back without losing myself." This silent tension deepens the gap until the relationship feels frozen in place. Jung warned that, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. And this explains why estrangement can become a cycle. Both parent and child repeat emotional patterns without realizing it, and both suffer because neither knows how to break the spell. When children turn away, the act is almost never driven by hate. It is driven by confusion, identity formation, and the deep need to rewrite their inner story without the pressure of old expectations. Yet even in this darkness, spiritual wisdom teaches that separation can create space for awareness. When the emotional noise quiets, both sides can begin to see their own patterns more clearly. Children may realize they are not running from the parent, but from their own unhealed wounds. Parents may recognize that the distance is not punishment, but a call for deeper understanding and gentler connection. And when both sides begin to understand the psychological forces at play, the relationship is no longer defined by blame, but by insight. In this light, estrangement is not the end. It is a painful invitation for both hearts to grow. I'd love to hear your thoughts on how individuation and inner growth have shaped your relationship with your parents or family. Share your experience in the comments below. And if today's message resonates with you, simply type, "I choose my authentic self," to show that you're embracing this Jungian journey with us. 4. The reality of abandoned parents. Many parents quietly confess that the deepest wound in their old age is not illness, poverty, or the slowing of their bodies, but the silence left behind by the very children they raised. Some describe it with a short, heartbreaking sentence: "I raised strangers." Behind those 3 words lies a lifetime of sacrifice, sleepless nights, unspoken worries, and small acts of love that were never recorded but were always given. When an adult child turns away, the parent does not simply lose a relationship. They lose a role, a dream, and a part of their identity. The home they once filled with noise and warmth becomes an echo chamber, reminding them of birthdays, holidays, and ordinary afternoons that will never return. Yet the truth is that this distance rarely forms overnight. It grows slowly from unresolved conflicts, emotional misunderstandings, generational wounds, or the pressures of modern life that push families apart until one day the relationship quietly fractures. Some children carry resentment from the past, from moments when parents did their best but did not know how to meet certain emotional needs. Others become consumed by their own lives, careers, marriages, stress, survival, and gradually drift away without realizing the damage their absence causes. There are also children who disconnect because they feel they must protect their mental health from patterns or expectations they never knew how to navigate. None of these explanations erase the pain of the parent, but they reveal a difficult truth. Many adult children are not rejecting their parents as humans. They are rejecting the unresolved emotional history they feel trapped inside. Carl Jung spoke to this when he said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." Much of the distance between parents and adult children is not caused by hatred, but by unhealed emotional inheritance that neither generation fully understands. But as heavy as this reality is, there is another side, one that many elderly parents slowly discover after the initial shock of abandonment. Some begin to reclaim their inner peace through solitude. They explore hobbies they once loved but never had time for. They join community groups, volunteer programs, or small circles of friends who remind them that companionship can be found even outside of family. Through these activities, parents begin to rediscover the self that existed before the identity of motherhood or fatherhood took over their entire life. They reconnect with forgotten passions, creativity, and personal purpose, realizing that their story does not end simply because a child has stepped away. This quiet return to the self is not a form of giving up. It is a form of returning home. It allows parents to experience a deeper kind of peace, one that arises from being present with themselves rather than waiting for validation or affection that may never come. This journey also reveals a subtle truth. When you stop chasing what is absent, you begin to see the value of what is still present within you. Many parents who once felt hollow eventually find strength in this rediscovery, learning that while the heartbreak of abandonment leaves a scar, it does not have to define the rest of their life. Some even find that solitude opens a door to healing they never expected, helping them grow into a version of themselves that feels more authentic, more grounded, and more at peace than ever before. 5. Transformation through solitude. Solitude becomes a powerful turning point in your life because, as Carl Jung explained, suffering is not just a wound, but a doorway to individuation, the deep inner process where you stop living as a reflection of others and begin to return to your true self. When the noise falls away and you have no one left to impress or perform for, you are forced into an honest meeting with your own soul. And although this silence can feel sharp and uncomfortable, it is often the only environment where real spiritual development can begin. In that quiet space, you start noticing the patterns you used to ignore, the emotional wounds you avoided, and the parts of yourself you buried under responsibility, relationships, and expectations. Loneliness becomes a mirror that shows you where you have abandoned yourself long before anyone else ever did. As you sit with your inner world, something shifts inside you. The pain you once feared begins to reveal its meaning, and the emptiness that felt unbearable starts teaching you what you truly need. Jung believed that this internal confrontation is the heart of transformation because facing your shadow, your fears, regrets, suppressed emotions breaks the illusion that you must stay the same to be loved. When you look inward long enough, you begin to see that solitude is not punishment, but purification, a slow removal of everything false, everything that no longer fits the person you are becoming. This is why people often find unexpected strength in their darkest hours. The silence pushes them to grow roots where they once had only reactions, and in that stillness, wisdom begins to form. Solitude strengthens intuition, deepens emotional clarity, and reveals the quiet truths that constant distraction kept hidden, allowing you to step into spirituality not as an escape, but as a deeper understanding of your own nature. Through this journey, you realize that the loneliness you feared is actually shaping your inner character, helping you reclaim the parts of yourself you abandoned to keep the peace or meet expectations. Every painful memory that rises in solitude becomes an opportunity for healing. Every uncomfortable realization becomes a step toward wholeness. Jung taught that individuation is the slow integration of all your pieces, the light, the shadow, the past, and the future into someone authentic and complete. And solitude is where that integration begins. Your suffering becomes the fire that refines you. Your silence becomes the teacher that guides you. And your spiritual strength grows not from avoiding the darkness, but from learning how to walk through it. The lesson hidden inside this process is simple. When you allow solitude to work on you, it reveals your truth, restores your power, and leads you toward a version of yourself that no longer breaks under pressure, but stands rooted in clarity, purpose, and inner peace. If this message resonates with you, declare your strength in the comments. In solitude, I transform. 6. Coping strategies and healing. Healing from a child's abandonment is not a simple process, but a deep inner journey where the spiritual wisdom of Carl Jung becomes a guide that helps you understand your pain and reclaim your strength, reminding you that the greatest burden a child must bear is the unlived life of the parent, and showing you how unresolved wounds from the past can silently shape the relationship you have with your children. That is why the first lesson is learning to set boundaries, because loving your child does not mean tolerating humiliation, disrespect, or emotional manipulation. And every time you gently but firmly say, "I deserve to be treated with dignity," you reclaim a part of yourself that you may have forgotten while giving everything to your family, honoring Jung's teaching that what you allow unconsciously continues until you consciously stop it. Yet even with boundaries, the pain remains heavy until you allow yourself to grieve honestly, letting yourself cry, admit the heartbreak, and speak your truth without shame. Because as Rumi said, the wound is the place where the light enters you, and acknowledging your grief becomes an act of courage that begins to release the weight you have been carrying alone for so long. That honesty naturally leads to the need for connection, because isolation will convince you that you are unworthy. But rebuilding community through friendships, support groups, faith circles, volunteering, or simply opening up to people who genuinely care reminds you that love doesn't vanish just because your child pulled away. This widening circle of support slowly replaces the haunting silence, giving you emotional safety and reminding you that your story continues even when a part of it has been broken. From there, rediscovering your purpose becomes essential, because when children walk away, many parents feel like their entire identity disappears with them. Yet Jung reminds us that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are, meaning that your life still holds meaning beyond the label of parent. This is your invitation to return to passions you once buried: writing, gardening, creating, teaching, learning, traveling, or helping others. And as you pour your energy into something that makes your soul feel alive, you begin rebuilding the self that was overshadowed by years of sacrifice. And through all of these steps, the most transformative layer is learning to seek meaning, not by pretending everything is fine, but by exploring what this pain is teaching you about boundaries, self-worth, forgiveness, compassion, and the unresolved wounds you may still carry from your own childhood. You may find meaning in faith, in talking honestly with God, or in serving others who are hurting, or in creativity as you turn your pain into art, stories, or quiet acts of beauty that restore your sense of purpose. This shift finding meaning where there was only loss turns you into the alchemist of your own soul, someone who transforms heartbreak into clarity and sorrow into growth. As Viktor Frankl wrote, "When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. And through setting boundaries, grieving with honesty, rebuilding community, rediscovering purpose, and seeking meaning, you step out of the role of the abandoned parent and into the role of someone who is healing, awakening, and remembering their own worth." 7. The spiritual lesson behind the pain. When children turn away from their parents, life is not simply closing a door. It is redirecting you back to your own soul, urging you to reclaim the parts of yourself that were forgotten while you were giving, sacrificing, and carrying the weight of everyone else's needs except your own. The heartbreak cuts deeply because it comes from the very people you once held as infants, the ones you stayed awake for, worried for, and protected with everything you had. Yet the deeper meaning behind this pain is that it is not an ending, but a powerful invitation into transformation, authenticity, and freedom from emotional dependency. The silence, the absence, the unanswered calls can feel like rejection, but underneath that pain is a sacred message. You are being called to rediscover your worth beyond your role as a parent, to understand that your dignity and capacity for joy are not determined by who walks away, and to remember that your identity is rooted in something far more enduring than another person's approval. Even when family ties fail, your heart does not lose its value. Your spirit does not lose its shine. This is where spirituality and spiritual development begin to guide you, reminding you that your existence has meaning independent of whether your children stay close or drift far. Sometimes, the absence of loved ones awakens a deeper presence within you, a resilience that only emerges when everything external collapses. You begin to sense that the emptiness is not a void, but a clearing, a space where your soul can breathe again after years of being overshadowed by responsibility and emotional pressure. Through this space, you slowly rediscover the courage to live fully, not as someone defined by others, but as someone who belongs to themselves. As you walk through this emotional valley, you may notice a shift within you. You become less controlled by guilt, less burdened by unspoken expectations, and more able to set gentle but firm boundaries that protect your peace. You begin to understand that love does not mean allowing disrespect, that forgiveness does not require abandoning yourself, and that closeness is not the same as loyalty. You stop asking, "What did I do wrong?" and start asking, "What is life trying to awaken in me through this pain?" When you look at the situation through this lens, the suffering that once felt cruel becomes a teacher that reveals hidden layers of strength, self-respect, and emotional clarity. Gradually, the pain softens and something new emerges, a quiet but powerful recognition that even in the most desolate seasons, your soul is not broken, but being reshaped. You learn that you can live even without constant validation, that you can find joy that does not depend on anyone's presence, and that you can build an inner home no one can abandon. In this way, the very experience that once felt like devastation becomes the beginning of a deeper, wiser relationship with yourself, rooted in spirituality, grounded in self-worth, and strengthened through spiritual development. If today's message spoke to the deeper spiritual lesson within your pain, take a moment to ground that awareness. Comment below, "I choose healing," to honor your inner growth and encourage others to face their own truth with strength. In the end, Carl Jung's insight reminds us that when adult children turn away, it is rarely about simple disrespect. It is a reflection of unhealed wounds, unspoken pain, and patterns carried through generations. Understanding this truth does not erase the hurt, but it does give you the power to respond with clarity, compassion, and strength. Healing begins when awareness replaces blame, and when love becomes a conscious choice rather than an old expectation. If this message brought you clarity or comfort, please remember to like, share, and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom. And don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. Your journey toward deeper understanding and healing continues here.